Hey good people, Batavia here. It's time for our August backyard garden tour. See you in a few. Okie doke, so housekeeping, thank yous to those who like, watch, subscribe, comment, and share Be Better Garden. We appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed already, consider it. There is a button below, and you can hit that notification bell so you'll be alerted each time I share more #GardenJoy. Alrighty, so we're in the backyard. We're in August. We're getting close to the end of the month. Wanted to share what's going on in the garden. Everything is growing. There's some earlier tours for the backyard garden, the front yard garden, and containers. If you want to check those out, I'll put the link in the description. And I'm going to go ahead and dig in. It's warming up. It's closer to the middle of the day, which I don't normally do these tours in the middle of the day, but we're going to give it a shot. Okie doke, so backyard garden. We have 7 raised beds. 4 are sitting on the concrete patio, 3 are in ground. I've opened up the doors. I'm going to leave the netting, this is that tulle fabric, on the beds just because I've seen that white cabbage moth making its rounds. But inside I have collard greens in that back row, and they're doing really well. I had a big batch of collards that I harvested last week and cooked up, but I did notice when I came in to get the leaves that I had been shadowing out some of my cabbage heads. So I'm probably only going to have just a couple cabbage heads, which is fine. These ones down here didn't do as well. They really haven't formed yet, so I'll probably end up pulling those. Then I have onions out front, which looks like for a couple of these it's time to harvest. I've read once the stems start to topple over, it's time to pull them. So all in all, really pleased with this bed. So for this bed, I'm really focusing on fall plantings. I have some things that I started back earlier in the summer, mint that just won't go away. I can't pull out quick enough. So I'm letting this grow a little bit just to get some leaves off of it. Lacinato kale or dinosaur kale. My Swiss chard looks a little bit tattered. And then I have some Ford Hook chard as well. I think that's a ruby red over here. And in this back row, I'm basically reserving for plantings for this fall. Kind of hard to see, but I have a couple of rows here that I'm going to use. I'm going to just give a quick view of my potatoes. I'm going to be harvesting some of these soon. I talked a little bit more about these in the container garden video, so I did a tour of that as well. This bed I have a bunch of beans. So there are really kind of string beans. So you can see some of them are growing. They're pretty young. So for some of these I'll leave on a little while longer. On the other side I have some royal burgundy beans. So those are the purple beans. They'll cook up green. And some of these are sizable, so I'll make sure to get in and get those. They're a bush variety, but you can see there's a little bit of crawling that's going on here. So I put this trellis that I found there. On the other side, I just needed to find a place to tuck them in. So there's some more jalapeno peppers. If you saw the front yard garden tour, you'll know I have a bunch of them up there too. These are smaller, so these plants haven't grown at the same pace. I can't remember if I planted them at the same time though. I started a couple of things for fall down here, some beets and some turnips. I'm probably going to have to come in here and sow a few more seeds. This is either butternut squash or spaghetti squash. Can't remember which, but I moved this one out from right behind me where I have some other squash plants that I've planted. So then we have our strawberry patch. I have been getting kind of on again, off again berries from here. So I cut out a bunch of berries, gave it a shot of fertilizer, and I'm waiting for more flowers to produce. I'm hopeful I'll get one more round of berries. This is like a 4x4 bed, where the others are more like 7x3 or 7x4, depending on which bed it is. So check out my winter squash. I want to get a good angle at this. So this is butternut squash. No, spaghetti squash is in the front. Butternut squash is over on the fence. And so you can see some of the squash have started to grow. There's one right there. And then I'm pretty sure these are all spaghetti squash. There's a huge one there. There's another here. There are a couple of them in here. So I'm pretty hopeful they'll get a nice harvest. I was hoping for more butternut squash than spaghetti squash. But you know, gardeners won't be choosy. I have opened the doors of the cage baby. So the other 3 beds in the backyard garden are inside of the cage baby. Whole goal is to avoid squirrels from helping themselves to a bunch of tomatoes. Starting on this end, I know it's just like a bunch of green, right? So in the front row, I have pepper plants. These are your typical bell peppers that are here. But then I have a fun one. This is an Iko pepper. So it is both purple, and on the other side you'll see yellow, which is pretty cool. So for instance, this purple one's ready. I can now harvest this one. Behind the peppers, I have more tomatoes. So this is, I think it's the Sweetheart tomato. And I hope this angle does it justice. This one just produces clusters and clusters of cherry tomatoes. They look really good. I had to do a lot of tying up of this plant, but it's worth it. Next to it is a determinate variety of Roma tomatoes. So I have a bunch of them in here. And I've already picked a couple of, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so off the plants. And based on my kind of season, although it's a determinate variety, I've accidentally planted determinate tomatoes before, and what ends up happening is they basically go until the frost. So by the time they're all ripe. So I have these 2 in here. Next to it, little bitty walkway to help myself get in and out. I have in the back row 2 beefsteak tomato plants. So since this one's a little bit easier to get to, there's some really big tomatoes here. There's a few that I have to pull off the plant because I'm going to do some deep watering because it's going to get pretty hot in the next week or so here. We've had kind of on again, off again weather as far as the heat goes, and it's been super dry here. I'm in zone 6A, Chicago, Illinois. I forgot to show more peppers. So these are more bell peppers. I don't see the tag, but I think these will turn maybe orange or yellow. But yeah, they look pretty good. Oh, I think this is it? Oh no, it's a bell pepper. For a second I thought it was one of the poblanos, which I'm in search of because I accidentally either gave them away or let the transplants die on the back porch. So I don't have as many as I really wanted. These are, I can't pronounce it. It's spelled S-H-I-S-H-I-T-O, and they're just not gonna make it. These got into the ground super late. June 30th is what the tag said, and they really didn't have a chance to produce. Behind them though is let me take a seat. Let's see if you can see it. Behind them is the Marconi pepper, which I'm super excited about. I'm glad that I actually got a chance to, at least on one plant, for these to produce. These will ultimately turn red. They're a sweet pepper. And I think it's the same here, but based on the size of these, this plant probably won't produce any peppers for me. Once I start my fall planting, I'll probably yank it just for the space. Speaking of fall, I started some spinach there in that kind of rectangle container. So it's coming along. Then I have 2 more tomato plants that you know, I don't know what they are really. So I thought they were Brandywine. That's how I labeled them. But if you look at the size and based on the packaging for the seeds, Brandywines for this variety should be larger, but they're too big to be the cherry tomato plants that I started. So I don't know what they are. I don't know if I'm going to figure it out, and that's fine. There's some more peppers here that, same story, I started them pretty late, and I'm not really getting many peppers off of it, which again, I kind of knew as we came into, you know, July, that these probably weren't going to do well. Last bed. Alrighty, so this just looks like a bunch of green, right? But these are my green zebra tomatoes. Oh, I love this tomato. It actually, this is not ripe. It gets ripe once it turns to more of like this yellowish, orangish, see if I can get in there. Yeah, yellowish, orange-ish flesh color. So these have been, the tomatoes have been planted, I don't know, let's see, it was like June 6th, so that's 2.5 months. So these have been producing tomatoes, but not ripening too quickly. But then again, it's not even 3 months yet, so I'm okay with that. Next to it is the huge early girl. This one has gone probably 6 feet tall. No, 7 feet. It produced the first ripe tomatoes, but after it produced the first ripe ones, I didn't get too many more off the plant as far as ripening. But there are a bunch of clusters of tomatoes here. Let's see if I can get in. So you can see I have a bunch of green tomatoes. I actually have not made fried green tomatoes yet, so I'm going to find some of these larger ones and do that. So this one is doing really well. I'm definitely going to plant it next year. I haven't decided on the flavor. I think it's just really a standard tomato. Nothing too exciting about it, but it's definitely a big producer. And then I have more of the lemon drop peppers. So these kind of are like vines almost as far as how the plant grows up. So I'm going to keep that in mind if I plant this in the future. I think it's kind of cool how the skin is kind of wrinkly, and they actually kind of grow first up pointing to the sky, and then once it gets bigger it kind of drops down. So pretty cool. That is the backyard. Oh wait, I forgot my volunteers. So just a quick update, they are still kicking butt. You have one here. The larger one has so many tomatoes I can't even open the doors all the way because they're so big. So I thank you for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions, feel free to drop them below, and I shall see you all on the next one.